Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, Science of the Symbols Part 21. We're moving away from the constellations and the legends, especially Greco-Roman, and looking a little bit closer at alchemy. So throughout have been especially Athanasius Kircher, this famous Jesuit, and for instance this symbol here which had, as we've seen, constellational symbols, lots of symbology, but the focus will be on these 7 symbols of the Sun, Earth, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Saturn and Jupiter, which also connect to the gods, but also to the planets, of course, but also to alchemy. We've already seen Columba and the Triple Crown. But what's interesting, and we'll be looking especially at this one, we notice the symbols of the zodiac. We see another set of zodiac symbols here, and we see hints at some of them here, but these are actually alchemical symbols as well, and we'll be going through and looking a little bit more at those and what they start to mean. Robert Fludd, this very famous Hermeticist as well, this famous image of his as well. Now we can look, what we have is the planet symbols which also connect to Venus or copper, antimony, lead, as in Saturn, the symbol of Saturn there, but also connecting to antimony. We also have constellations such as Leo on the zodiac. Last episode I was especially talking about Delphinus. We see Delphin there, which connects again to these ancient legends of the gods and what they start to mean. Pisces and Aquila, the eagle, which is again previous episode connected to Zeus and the stories contained therein. Now, well, but now we've been looking at those, and because the focus now, another very important Hermeticist alchemist of the time was Stephan Michelspacher, where we see tincture, coagulation, distillation, putrefaction, solution, sublimation, calcination. These are all chemistry operations still in use today. The same alchemical wedding of sun and moon, the phoenix, Mercury, and how these figures represent the planets, the elements and the gods. We also have the zodiac signs around the outside. Aqua, water; terra, air; ignis, fire. So with those zodiac signs and the constellations, so again this older chart, so previous episode Perseus and those associated stories paint a star map of the northern hemisphere. We can just see, say, the 12 signs of a zodiac around the outside pointing up to the North Star. Delphinus, we see that again, that more monstrous sort of definition. Hercules, these other important constellations there. But how are they? Okay, so the Greek zodiac is essentially the Babylonian, this older zodiac. Greco-Roman inherited their knowledge from earlier things, and so for instance Taurus and the 7 stars of the Pleiades, where we can see those as well. Now there are other clear references. It's not even, that's just sort of pretty much well known. So around the outside of this illustration, there we can see again the signs of the zodiac, and this is also an illustration of Stephan Michelspacher. We also have the zodiac there, but it's just in a slightly different form. So we have Leo the lion, Taurus the bull, for instance, and if we zoom in, there we can see Pisces, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Aries on this sphere, Leo with Capricorn, Cancer, Scorpio, and on the bottom Libra, Gemini, and Virgo connected there. So it sometimes varies in form, but the information is pretty much a standard now. Around, again, back to this Michelspacher one, we also have these symbols here, which are alchemical symbols. But also in one of the repeated themes there in the center, calcination, which can be connected to the phoenix, rises from the ashes. The fire of phoenix gives birth to the child of a phoenix. Now we also have the same emblem here, and also, previous episodes talking about the constellations, so we have Phoenix, and then we can see this being referred to again. These southern hemisphere constellations, especially the deep south, were between 16th, 17th, 18th, early 18th century were named, and they were these Hermetic knowledge was passed on. Now we also had the constellation Pavo, the pigeon. The peacock, which is connected to the Greek gods, next to constellation Ara, the altar upon which the Olympians swore their oath. And we also have these connections, Phoenix again, this ancient legendary bird, and also this constellation Fornax, which has been simplified in modern artworks, but that's Alchemy, and originally called Fornax Chemica or Apparatus Chemicus. It's an alchemist's lab. So there's a lot of this stuff going on, and for instance, again, this is we have the peacocks and connected to Hera's chariot, but also the blackbird and basically a fire symbol, the phoenix, and the dove going on there. But various operations of again of chemistry / alchemy still used. Now with this symbol, we'll compare these two, and so what we have here is some alchemical symbols. Basically, it's the early periodic table, but the symbols also were operations in chemistry. So to purify, these other ones were to digest, to distill, and these symbols also not just of the elements themselves, but all the substances, but also of operations. And so where we have this symbol here and this one here, well, that's Mercury, Quicksilver, Mercury the planet, Hermes the god, and we also have sulfur. You can see the salt symbol for sulfur. Now, if you go back to this one, and again, we'll be looking at these symbols around the outside and of how they connect to the alchemical symbols. So, for instance, Aries, I think. But what do we have? This symbol here. Now, their orientation is an important thing, and that's why when you look closely, but basically they don't write it straight. There's always things will be turned to the side. They'll be turned upside down. That was another way of encoding their secrets, but that's much more detailed. But what we have is the symbol for tartar. And what is tartar? It's the salt. Potassium biartrate that forms as a crystalline deposits in containers of wine, often purified to form cream of tartar. There you get an example of that. So again, there wasn't these nice big chemical factories. They had to obtain their substances and their elements, the pure form, from various forms, and especially come around. So wine bottles and the sediment, basically you dry that out and you have tartar. Now, for instance, this symbol again, and what do we have? Sulfur once more. And sulfur, either the element sulfur of our periodic table or the hypothetical substance, along with mercury and salt, made up of 3 Paracelsian principles. Now, where did I get this from? I'll show you in a moment. But now back to, so again, these main figures on the 7 on the inside, which refer to, Saturn, the planet, also Saturn or Kronos, the god, Jupiter / Zeus with the firebolt, the moon goddess, Artemis / Diana, sun god Apollo, Mercury, of course, Hermes, god of weights and measures, Mars, or Ares, as known in Greek, and Venus in Roman, but Aphrodite in the Greek, and how they also connect to these very important elements on our periodic table, which were also available to the alchemists and ancient people as well. So this is a fusion of Hermetic knowledge, so the quadrivium, through the sciences, navigation, weights and measures, and alchemy. To do alchemy, you need to have weights and measures. Now, for instance, references to time, because you have to know how long to keep your operation in going. So how long do you dissolve things, how long do you boil things, etc. But also you need to be able to measure the elements as well. So all these things come together, and again, classical alchemical symbol, all the tools and the various feet, the alchemical wedding of sun and moon will come to that, because that has a lot to do with Mercury, sun and moon, the alchemical wedding. This is a lot to do with amalgams and the importance of Mercury as a primer materia, the first material in regards to this alchemical knowledge. I'll put the link in the description. So these earlier references, for instance, this come from this particular website, because Isaac Newton, he was an alchemist. He's read some, not too many, last few years, a lot of his texts have been released, and his alchemical texts as well. And this is a great site because you can do it by text, but you can also look up by symbols. And for instance, I'll bring up the site. Okay, so here you have this link will be in the description, and you can, for instance, you click on here, and because my computer's running slow, but you can also search by symbols. But so again, that link will be in the description. So the Alchemy of Newton. Now, okay, this earlier Kircher drawing, again we saw the 7 planets, gods, elements, including Mars, Venus and Mercury, which iron and copper and mercury. His illustration, like again we see, you see again the 7, each circle has the 7 heavenly bodies around the outside, feminine and masculine aspects to those, which sort of bring us back to that 112 number being so important in our alchemical tradition. And also the concept, the basic philosophy behind Newton's alchemy. And he, again, famously had a very small collection of books, but especially classical history, Bible, and some very small collection of Hermetic works. But he believed you could extract information from it. And so, for instance, to create the Philosopher's Stone, he used the legend of Vulcan finding Venus and Mars in bed with one another. He cast them in a silvery net onto the ceiling or onto the sky, the dark sky. Planets, okay, but they also connect to elements. Copper, Venus, plus iron, plus fire, gives us the net, which has this silvery, like a silver net pattern, and also sort of matches the color of the sky as well, the night sky. And again, this connects back to the principles of Hermeticist alchemy / chemistry, metallurgy, jewelry, glass making, even fireworks, gunpowder, and dyes, all these ink, for instance, that goes with it. Now, okay, Azoth, the primary material, again, the alchemical wedding, rebus with that Mercury symbol and the 4 elements there. Again, we see the same, the 7. But what I want to get to while we've got time, so this is another example. Again, we see these planetary symbols as well as alchemical symbols, lunar and Solus, alchemical wedding of sun and moon, Rosicrucian, the white and the red, sun and moon, prima materia as well, which connects to this. But this would be another Magistar, which was another name for a scientist, magician in the old day. Tincture, again, sun and moon, alchemical symbols there on the double-headed eagle, which is in the reference we'll be coming back to. Okay, while we're here, okay, so this illustration, Magia, Lucifer, Lucifer the light bearer. Light is another word for it. Lucifer's again, double vesica, sun and moon reference. The alchemist, he's making illumination. Now, that would also connect to, for instance, Luciferin is the name of a family of compounds, that's where fish get their glow, and so glowing fish. Also maybe to putrefaction, because when rotten fish go, you see them in the night, they have this bioluminescence. And so that would be pretty much it for this one. Hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.